In this video, I'd like to look at a bash script that's going to write some file. I don't really care what's in the file. And then the question will be, if the file exists, then don't overwrite any existing files. And we'll handle it in some ways. The first way will be to just not write the file. The second approach will be to add numbers to the name until you come up with a number that doesn't exist. So then you can write that new file. And then the third version will be to add like a date and time and have enough precision in the time down to seconds or something like that, so that you, if the script is run presumably at 2 different seconds, it'll have a new name and not overwrite a previous file. So here's the script in question. So I am making not a simple variable that is the file name, but rather I have my base file name and my file extension. And then I will add anything to prevent duplications between the base name and the extension. So that's why 2 variables. It's just my data, my underscore data, and d.txt, just pretend some file. I'm in documents. I'm working in Visual Studio Code. I'm directed to my documents folder. My terminal's also directed there. And I'm going to do an ls at this stage. And at this stage, I have no files here on my data. So the first time I run this first thing is going to, it's this question here is asking, this -f asks if this, so I'm creating a name, concatenating together the base file name and the file extension, and asking with this -f here if that's a file. And if that is a file, I'm saying that already exists. And if not, I'm just creating the date and to have something to write to the file and writing it to the file. So the first time I run the file, this is going to be false, and I'll create the file. But the next time I run it, it will be true, and then it'll echo out the message that file already exists. So that's what approach 1 is going to do. First time I run it, it's going to make the file, and the next time around, it's not going to make the file. Approach 2 is going to ask that I'm going to have a counter, then I start with a 1. And I'm going to say, here's the base file name, and here's a counter, and there's the file extension. And that exists, while that exists, the first time around, that doesn't exist. But while that exists, keep incrementing the counter. And then at some point, the file will not exist if I go high enough. And then I'm going to write the file with that count where the file didn't exist. And in this last version down here, I'm between the file name and the extension. I'm including a date command with the year, the month, the day, the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. And presumably that will give me enough difference that, at least in the seconds category, that if I run it and then run it again, it'll have a new name. And another version of this that I didn't write down is I can get bash to generate a random number. And then, so instead of having specifically the date in here, I could have a random number, and presumably be unlikely that the random number would be the same random number. Just another way to handle it. Okay, so let me run the script. What is it called? Bash a new file, bash new underscore file .sh. And okay, so I didn't echo out that the file didn't exist because it did not exist. So, but there it made it new file under, sorry, no, that's the script itself. Here's the my underscore data.txt. So that's the first one. It didn't already exist, so it made it. Here's the one with the counter. The first counter with a 1, that didn't exist, so it made it. And here's the one with the date. So it's 2222. So it's that 22222 day. And then there was hours, minutes, and seconds. Okay, so let's run it again. And now this time, my first approach was just a simple if it existed or not. So now I'm not writing the file. I'm just echoing out that it exists in this approach 1. So approach 1 writes the file or doesn't write that. If the file exists, it doesn't write it, end of story. Whereas the other two are trying to come up with some file that can be written. Now I see over here that I have 1 and 2. So it started up this loop. When the count was 1, it said that file existed, so it stayed in the loop. It incremented the count to 2, and then that didn't exist, so it got out of the while loop and made the file with the count as 2. And down here in approach 3, there was enough change in the minutes and seconds for it to be a new file. And I can just keep going, run it again, and run it again, and I will keep getting either the count version keeps making new versions with different counts, and the date time down to minutes and seconds, that keeps producing different versions. And so it's just a way, and I'm just writing a silly date to these files. It's just a way to prevent either an if or a while, or by using a date. And again, as I said, another approach would be to use a random number just to prevent overwriting files. Okay, that's what I wanted to show you in this example. Thanks very much for your attention.